Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Fertility TV. I'm Dr. Mark Sklar, the fertility expert, and I am always excited when I get to interview some of my colleagues from around the world, and today is absolutely no different. I have the pleasure of talking to Samantha Gladish, who is in Canada, and she is the founder of Holistic Wellness, and she's got an awesome podcast, which I was on, so hopefully all of you are nodding your head saying, yes, you listened. Healthy Hormones for Women. Samantha, thank you so much for joining.
Thank you, Mark, for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, so when Samantha interviewed me, we got along so well. I really love her message and what she's sharing with the world, and I wanted to make sure that I introduced her to all of you. So you're going to get to learn a little bit more about Samantha today. Hopefully you check out her information. She's got an awesome podcast, obviously, because I was on it. But that aside, it's all really good, useful, practical information, which we're going to get into today. Which I am excited about. But I want to first start, first and foremost, by kind of sharing a little bit more about you with everybody, letting them know kind of how you got into this, as we all have a story when we're in the natural health field, as I'm sure everyone has come to learn. We got into it because of our own junk and our own stuff. So Samantha, kind of give us a little bit of history and backstory as to what brought you to where you are today.
Absolutely. So I am an online nutritionist, weight loss coach, and a hormone fixer-upper. And I really, as a little girl, I was always innately interested in food and nutrition and health. And I would spend so much time in our backyard, in our garden, and probably more so ruining the garden than anything, but thinking that I was having an impact. I remember in the summertime, I would sit by our garden eating watermelon and then spit the seeds into the garden. And then sure enough, weeks later, like 20 watermelons started growing. And my mom was like, where did all this come from? So I was always just really innately connected to food and nutrition. And I was really lucky enough to grow up in a household where my mother made everything from scratch, and also my grandmother fed me a lot, and she made everything from scratch and had her own garden. And so, of course, as a teenager, those healthy habits die hard, and you are, fast food with your friends and, just eating all the junk. Yep. And that's what happens, right? And so I started in my teens. I had really terrible PMS and a lot of digestive issues as well. And so I didn't think that my diet had any relation to that whatsoever. And I, even as a young,
would it?
Right? Of course. I mean, what teenager is going to condone their pizza or their pasta? So I had really terrible PMS, and I remember my doctor putting me on the birth control pill as kind of, the fix-all. And again, also as a teenager, I wasn't connected to my body. I didn't understand my cycle. I didn't understand my hormones. I didn't know what should be normal or not normal. I think many women think that PMS is just a normal thing. You're supposed to have cramping and bloating and headaches and lie in bed for 2 or 3 days. Many women just think that is just really normal. But even going back to when I was a little girl, my parents put me on a lot of over-the-counter medication. They did what they knew best. Yeah. And so it's in no way to point the finger, but a cold, a sneeze, whatever it might be, I was put on medications or over-the-counter meds, and again, my parents was just doing what they thought was right for me. And even then, even going back, I think back, okay, at birth, I was a C-section baby, I was formula fed, and here I am in my teens and then going into my 20s now, like terrible PMS, terrible digestion. And it wasn't until really more in the more recent years that I started to uncover this sort of health history, this hormonal health history and this health story that really has led to me now developing autoimmune Hashimoto's. And it's just been this journey, this health journey of constantly doing detective work and really uncovering, why am I experiencing these symptoms, and recognizing that medication is just this Band-Aid approach. So how can I dive in deeper and really uncover, why are these things happening to me?
Yeah, your story, I think many of us can relate to it. I certainly can. The junk food in high school and not really thinking much about it. Um, my grandmother always cooked everything from scratch. My mom started that way and then kind of migrated in the other direction as things
Right,
became more convenient. The whole birth story. These are things that were very commonplace for our generation and
right.
for parents of that time. They just, like you said, they just thought they were doing the right thing for all of us, right? And now we learn. We learn
Yes.
as we go.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Um, how has that how has your story impacted the way you work with patients?
So I think that you can only take someone as far as you've gone yourself. And that's how it's really impacted my practice, is because I've gone through this. And especially as a woman, I work mainly with women in my practice, really being able to connect with them on such a deep level, because I've been there, I've done that, I've been through it all. So I can really understand the emotional, psychological, physical connection to all of the symptoms that may show up. And so, having gone through so many different health challenges, but also being able to break through those health challenges as well, it's really allowed to show. I can show my patients that it's possible to get to the other side of this, and just really being able to hold that space for them, because I get it. It's not easy, and it can be really challenging trying to navigate it all on your own.
I think that's beautiful and really important that that we've been there in some fashion. We've gone through our own health issues to be able to relate to patients and understand what they're going through for sure. That
Yes,
makes a big difference when they're struggling a little bit here and there. um,
definitely.
if we were going to talk about there's a lot of things that Samantha and I can talk about and share with all of you. And
Mhm.
prior to pressing record, we narrowed down to a couple of specific things that we wanted to talk about. And maybe we'll, entertain you all in the future with other interviews on different topics. But what we thought would be best for all of you was kind of honing in and focusing in on lifestyle. So I am sure, Samantha, that during your journey, lifestyle has played a big role in managing your health conditions, your hormones. What are some of the key kind of lifestyle factors that you would say not only impacted you, but that the the women watching can say, okay, this is something that I can latch onto, I can grab, I can change, and I can focus on when it comes to affecting their hormones?
Absolutely. So I'll just take a few steps back, especially with my Hashimoto's. When I was diagnosed with that just over a year ago, back in May 2017.
That's recent.
Yeah, it's fairly recent. And
Okay.
so I had it before then. I
Right.
just didn't know,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? And it wasn't until January of 2017 was when I started to feel just a shift in my body. And I was getting a lot of brain fog. My memory was really terrible. I was getting more migraines and headaches. And then I started to feel this weird pain in my hands. I just had this hard time with my grip. And I would notice I would go to the gym and I couldn't grip things. And that's when I was like, okay, something is really not right here. And having worked with so many women who have had Hashimoto's or thyroid issues, I just knew in my gut, I was like, this is Hashimoto's. I just know it. And I went to the doctor, months later, and had gotten an official diagnosis. And so getting that diagnosis, I've actually had some friends say to me like, oh, you're a nutritionist. Don't you like, weren't you pissed off when you heard that? And I was like, no, because I'm a human being. Like, it's not like I'm immune to these things as a
Right.
nutritionist. I think that so many women look at me and think like, oh, you're never going to have a weight issue or you're never going to have a hormone issue because you're a nutritionist. And that's not the case. So that was really an empowering diagnosis is really what it was. And it really allowed me to take a step back and take more radical responsibility for how I was showing up in my life. And so this is where really the lifestyle medicine and intervention comes into play, because we can pop as many supplements as we'd like to, but if we're not managing our stress or sleep or toxins in our environment, none of it really matters. And I hear a lot of my clients saying to me, I have so much stress, what supplement can I take? And it's like, the
Hmm.
supplement is not going to fix this.
Yep.
It's you having to change your lifestyle and really make lifestyle intervention a big priority here. And so the first thing for me was sleep. That was a really big area that
Mm.
was getting impacted by my autoimmune and by stress. It's all kind of compounding. And so sleep was just really, really big for me. And being somebody that, I'm an entrepreneur, I am behind the computer a lot, and the light off of the computer is going to impact your circadian rhythms and affect hormonal health and melatonin, serotonin production. And so in order to support my sleep, I actually had to manage what I was doing during the day, because that directly impacts your sleep. So
Yes.
getting outside and getting light, sunlight on my skin, sometimes I'm sure as an entrepreneur, you get so wrapped up into your projects. And I'm sure
Yep.
so many women who might be listening, they get it. They're at home and they're like so deep into their work. It's like 6-7 hours go by and you're like, you barely came up to take a breath,
Right.
right? So for me, that was a big wake up call, and I needed to make it a priority to go outside and actually, expose myself to sunlight. And even if it wasn't sunny, still to go outside.
Yeah.
And that light is so important. And to manage your sleep, it really does start with what you're doing during the day. It starts with what you do in the morning, exposing your eyes literally to that sunlight. And so I had to make it a priority to spend more time out in vitamin N, nature, which is a vitamin I think so many of us are lacking.
My favorite vitamin.
Yeah, it's the best one. It's so healing and it's so grounding. And especially, I live in a condo. I'm 27 floors up. I'm surrounded by a lot of EMF and, the Wi-Fi and all of that. So being outside in nature, it's like really cleansing for that. Yeah, and it
I was
feels,
just gonna the word right as you said cleansing, in my mind, the word that came up was detoxifying.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And so just, connecting, being grounded, putting my feet on the ground was just the simplest thing that you can do, but so incredibly healing. And so vitamin N, exposing myself to the sunlight, that was really important. It really starts to set that circadian rhythm and support melatonin production. And then also being on the computer all day, I invested in getting the blue light blocking glasses. And so, yeah, I kind of look like Terminator when I'm wearing them.
You
And yeah,
do. I've got because of my glasses and I don't wear contacts, when I wear mine, I have to have bigger ones that go around them. So they're
right.
like enormous.
They must be massive. Yeah, so it looks kind of funny wearing them, but they've really had such a huge impact. And not just for eye strain, but just from a hormonal perspective and really blocking out that junk light. So just like we want to get rid of junk food, we really want to be conscious of the junk light that we are exposed to. And many of us are working in offices all day long, artificial lights at work, plus we're behind the computer all day. So wearing those glasses is really, really important. So I have the yellow ones that you wear when you're on the computer all day.
Good.
And then I also have the red ones, and those are the ones that you wear at night.
At night.
Yes, and I wear them about 30 to 60 minutes before I go to bed, and they're red. So basically everything you see is black and red. And if you're watching something on Netflix or anything, you're not going to see any color. It's all going to be black and red. And so many times, you know, we might be watching a movie and then we turn off the TV, we turn off all the lights, and I won't take those glasses off until I go to bed. And like, I'm walking through the house and I can't see anything, bumping into everything. But it's just, they've been really, really great for helping me to fall asleep a lot faster, which is really, really great. And yeah, so I know when people hear sleep, it's all about, okay, well, what supplement can I take to help me sleep? And of course, there's many things that we can do in the bedroom, and I can get into that. But outside of that, it's about what we're actually doing during the day that really does have an impact on our sleep. So
yeah, I think it's important that like we're always looking for a pill to pop, or we hear that question because I hear it all the time too.
For
and
sure.
I think it's important that we think of sunlight, nature, and you know, for all intents and purposes, the glasses as a supplement that you're taking, but you're using it versus taking it, sort of thing. And
Yes.
I think those are really practical, important things for all of you listening to really take to heart, because it's not always about putting something in your mouth. It might be something that you're doing, just like Samantha's saying.
Absolutely. And it's not that I'm against supplementation. I think supplements are so incredible and they can really be powerful and make such a shift, really helping to swing that pendulum. But at the same time, we're really neglecting a lot of these simple tools that are right at our fingertips and they're free. You know, sunlight, nature, really, really important. And so from a sleep perspective, what you do during the day, very important. Your movement is going to be really important too, making sure you're moving your body, sweating. That's also going to have a positive impact on your sleep. And then when it does come to sleep, I had to get really clear on sort of my sleep schedule. And I come from the bartending days back in the day. And so I was a night owl and I'd be up all night. And so I had to really sort of shift that kind of clock for myself. And so at 11 o'clock, everything goes off. You know, if the TV is on, lights on, everything just goes off at 11 o'clock. We're in bed at 11. And we keep our bedroom very, very cool. We have blackout blinds. Which is important, blocking out any light, because we do live like right in the middle of the city and it's very busy. There's a lot of lights around us. So we really want to block that out, and keeping the bed very cool. And we've got some really great organic cotton sheets. We just made some really great investments in our bedroom. You spend a lot of time there. So it's important that you make it this comfortable sanctuary that you really want to spend time in. You have to make it very appealing. Don't keep your room cluttered and very busy, because it can really sort of clutter your mind. So you want to keep the room very clean and very tidy as best as possible. So in bed by 11, and that's just kind of like the cutoff for me. And I think that that's really important or sometimes it's really difficult for a lot of women and men to kind of take that on, because, you know, we get caught up in watching a movie or a show on Netflix. And then, you know, before we know it, it's 1 or 2 in the morning and it's like, oh my God, now I got to be up at 7 a.m. So it's really important that you create those boundaries. And I'm lucky that with my partner, we both recognize the importance of sleep. I think it would be more challenging if I had a partner that stayed up really late and, you know, and then I wanted to go to bed and then he comes to bed later, like that would be challenging, or vice versa. So we're really on the same page with that. And we go to bed at the same time and we're up at the same time every day. And that schedule is what really, really works.
Yeah, it's important. You know, I'm always pushing my wife because I want to go to bed earlier, and I'm always kind of dragging her, you know,
that's us.
to bed. And oftentimes, and she kind of gets a second wind. She gets her night owlish stuff out, and you know, so she's trying to get things done and accomplished, and I'm always dragging her, and you know, 50% of the time she gets in bed with me. I've made a big deal because if she comes to bed late, she wakes me up, and then I'm not happy. So
of course.
So for all of you, it's really important, and I even set a little alarm in my house so that it goes off at 11. So I know that if I'm not already in bed, I need to be in bed, and we've got to wind down and head over for multiple reasons. But one is we need to make sure that we're getting enough sleep. And
Yes.
for that, you need to be on a good rhythm, like Samantha says. So really important tips, really practical, useful tips that you all are getting here. And they might seem simple, and they might seem like, well, no, that's not going to make a difference. I can promise you they do. I don't know. I shared, I think it was last week. I think it was last week or the week before, where I shared a story about sleep with about one of my patients. And I'll just recap real quickly if you all didn't see it on Instagram. But one of my patients was having an irregular cycle, and it kept getting longer and longer and longer. And we were doing all the right things. She was doing all the right things, but for some reason, nothing was working. So I just said to her quickly, like, well, walk me through your day. Tell me what time you wake up, what time you go to sleep, kind of fill me in between. She was waking up at 4 to be at the gym by 5,
Oh
to be
man.
home by 6:10, so that way she could get on with the rest of her day and not interrupt her family and so forth. And her cycles just kept getting longer and longer and longer. And all I did was say, you can't do that anymore. You're not allowed to wake up at that time. You need to get at least an hour and a half more sleep, if not more. And I said, you can do that twice a week, but she was doing it 6 days a week.
That's
So twice
crazy.
a week. Her cycle, the next cycle, went to 31 days.
That's awesome. That's
So,
awesome.
and she's not the only person I've done this with. I see this all the time. So these
Yep.
practical tips about sleep are really, really important for you, your health, and your hormones. So don't take it lightly.
Yes.
Take Samantha's recommendation and start to put them into practice.
If you're not sleeping, you're not healing.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
that just became such a wake up for me. And oftentimes I'm sure many women have experienced this. You don't have a good night's sleep, you wake up the next morning, aside from being exhausted, now your cortisol and your insulin are higher,
Oh,
you're
yeah.
craving more carbohydrates. 3 p.m. comes and it's like, why do I want all this chocolate or these sweets or need this coffee when I don't normally need it?
Right.
And your sleep has such this negative impact on your hormonal health. And so it's really important, especially from a weight perspective. So many women that I work with are, want to manage their weight, especially if you have thyroid issues. So getting the sleep is really, really essential, not just from feeling good and energized, but from really a healing perspective and from a detoxification perspective as well.
Yeah. Awesome. So one last thing that we wanted to talk about was birth control pill.
Yes.
And I don't know how many of you, I don't know how any of you feel about it. Um, but I can tell you, and Samantha and I actually haven't spoken much about birth control pills. I'm sure we're on the same page, but we haven't spoken much about it. So we'll find out in just a minute. Um, but I'm not the biggest fan of them for my patients for multiple reasons. But I'm going to throw that back at you, Samantha. And
Yes.
why don't you kind of tell all the ladies watching how you feel about it and kind of, where to go from there.
Absolutely. So I myself was put on birth control pill when I was about 17. And I stayed on it for almost a good 7 years. And I was lucky enough that when I did get off the pill, I was at a time in my life where I was already taking very good care of myself, eating really well, supplementing really well. About a month later, after being off the pill, I got my period back, no problem. And I had a regular cycle from then on. But that's not the case for many women. Many women will go on the pill, come off of it, and they don't get a regular cycle back. And many women will also go on the pill at a very, very young age. Some women are starting, girls are starting age 12, 13,
I know.
14 before their cycle is even fully developed, before their ovaries have even fully developed.
Yeah.
And so you're really shutting down that reproductive stage. And so you're not allowing your body to have a natural cycle. So when you're on the pill, what you're experiencing is a pill bleed. I didn't know that at the time when I was a teenager, and I'm sure many women didn't know that either. And so the pill, really what it's doing is shutting down ovulation And ovulation is such an important part of your cycle because that's how your body and your ovaries produce estrogen and progesterone. Really, really important hormones needed for so beyond just sexual health, but for energy, for metabolism, for sleep, for digestion, all kinds of things. And so the pill will shut down your ovulation. It will impact a lot of nutrient deficiencies. So it will deplete your body of B vitamins, which are involved in every neurological process in your body.
Everything. Yeah.
Deplete you of zinc, will deplete you of vitamin C, magnesium, and it really will displace a lot of your gut flora as well. So it'll start to impact digestion. And so, it's unfortunate because so many women go on the pill. We go on it because we want to have this sexual freedom and feel very liberated, but yet we go on the pill and now we have low libido, our digestion suffers, our hair is falling out, and we don't have a period, right? And so I'm really against hormonal birth control. I do feel that there's some women who have been, they're beyond their fertile years. Maybe they're in pre or post menopause and they may have some complications or issues going on with really heavy bleeding or cysts or fibroids or endo, where something like the pill might be helpful at that time. I do think that there's a lot of intervention you can do before that. But I recognize how it can be helpful in some situations. But overall, many women are going to the doctor's office with, bloating and cramping or headache. And it's like, they're just being handed the pill. And so I think that, one, it's really important for women to tune into their cycle, understand their cycle and the fluctuations that happen with their hormones throughout a 28-day, 30-day cycle. And then to, from a lifestyle, nutrition perspective, supplementation perspective, really take the sort of customized support for them and their body, because that's what's really going to have such a big impact on helping to manage some of these PMS symptoms that show up, so that you don't need to go on the pill in the first place. And if you're not getting your period, then that's time to really dive in deeper and start to look at, okay, what is happening here in the body that's suppressing this from happening? Because the birth control pill isn't going to bring it back. You're getting a fake sort of cycle, this pill bleed. And also, I do find that many women who go on the pill, once they come off, they start to develop PCOS. And that's because the pill can really interact. It has this, it starts to communicate with our cells and our cell receptors and insulin. And so if you didn't have PCOS before you went on the pill, many times women are coming off and now developing polycystic ovarian syndrome. So lots of complications that can happen with the pill. And I think that I know that there are so many more natural ways to address an irregular cycle or any type of PMS symptoms or PCOS.
Yeah, this point is really, really, it's an important one for all of us, not only for you watching right now, but for your daughters in the future, right?
Yes.
The administration of birth control pill is given out like it's candy at doctors' offices, at OBGYN offices. It's an easy way for them to treat you and then send you on your way, and then they can just move on to the next patient, and they don't have to think or worry about your situation. It's not really treating the situation. So I'll come back to a couple of points and just say, if you are sexually active and you want to be careful not to get pregnant, which makes a lot of sense, and there's definitely a place for that. My preference is that everyone takes some responsibility. Even if you're a teenager, you've got to take some responsibility for the decisions that you're making,
right.
And use different types of birth control. Birth control pill is not the best option. It's actually one of the first things when I met my wife. I can't remember if it came up in the first or second conversation, but it came up. She was on birth control, and I was like, well, if this relationship continues, that's going to stop.
Good for you.
It took her off guard, but I don't want to, I didn't want to deal with the hormonal issues, and she was already on it for whatever amount of time, right? So we were already going to have to deal with those things. The less time we're on it, the less complications, and um, the less difficult it's going to be to address those things. So
Right.
coming off birth control, post birth control, disorder, is really, there are issues there. It's not just made up, and these are things that need to be factored in, not just if making the decision to be on birth control now, but what are the ramifications in the future, and how are those going to be dealt with properly. So really getting to the root issue for everyone is a big deal, and not just kind of masking it with the pill. So that's our public announcement uh, for all of you. I will say, it's hard because I will sometimes see, not a ton, but I do see some teenage women who their parents bring them in. Their mom usually brings them in for hormonal issues, and oftentimes it's PCOS. They suspect they have PCOS or something like
Right.
that. And I've seen multiple times that the father in the relationship puts down his foot and says they're getting on birth control, period. And they just don't understand the ramifications and the
Right.
decisions that they're making long term. So I encourage all of you to do a lot more research, reach out to Samantha or I for a conversation about this, but really try to find other ways besides birth control pill to manage whatever situation that you're in that might require it.
Absolutely. And I think that many women think that fertility is about having babies, and it's beyond that,
Yeah.
right? So I'm 35. I'm not ready to start a family, and I'm not even sure if that's something that I really want. And so my partner and I'm not on the pill, but I'm still monitoring my cycle to avoid
Right.
pregnancy, right? But
Yeah.
it's important to have a healthy, fertile cycle either way, whether you want to conceive or
Absolutely.
not. So I think that's important.
Yeah, and the monitoring your cycle, one, when you are ready to have a child, it makes it easier because you know where
Yes.
you're at and you know what your
Yes.
cycles are all about. But it also makes it easier to prevent because have more freedom outside of your fertile window than you would during your fertile window, and you take more
Right.
precautions during that time. So you're just kind of reversing things a little bit instead of
Yep.
during the fertility journey side of things. So
Yes.
well, that's really practical. I think really practical and useful information, and that was really what I wanted to hopefully share with all of you, is practical, useful information that you could put into practice now and start to make some nice shifts. Hopefully, that will impact your health, your hormones, and if you're on that fertility journey, your fertility as well. Any last minute things you want to mention, Samantha?
There's so many things I can mention, but I think the biggest things are go outside and go to sleep. Go to sleep by 11 o'clock tonight. Make sure you are turning off your computer and your technology, and you're taking the time away from that, and you're taking that time to really decompress and be present. That's really going to help your sleep as well.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time and all the really useful information. Hopefully everyone watching has gotten some nice, useful, practical information that you can put into practice right now. For those of you who are watching, if you like this video, please give us a thumbs up. If you've got comments or questions, please post them below. I will do my best to answer them. YouTube question answering is not my forte, but will do my best. If you have any other questions for Samantha or I, in the description below, we'll put all the links. If you're finding this video on my blog post, then all the information you need is below. I'll actually even put a link to get those fun glasses that Samantha and I wear. I didn't know we were going to be talking about it, or else I would have put mine on.
It's all good.
And all that information will be either in the blog or below this video here if you're finding us on YouTube. If you want to get the announcement straight when we post new videos on Fertility TV, then please subscribe to my YouTube channel. And if you want all my goodies and all my information straight into your email box, then join my newsletter, marksklar.com/newsletter. Until the next episode of Fertility TV, stay fertile. Bye, everyone.
Click on the little I icon to get the best free guides and resources to empower your fertility that I only share with my community. You'll get an email a week with all my new tips.